In just 4 simple steps, I will install Arch Linux on this laptop. Having a twist, this laptop is already having Windows. So I will install Arch Linux along with the Windows installation so that I will be able to use both of the operating systems. And I will be able to say I use Arch, by the way. Step 0 to boot the operating system. Step 1, connect to the internet, format, install, and set up a GUI platform so that I will be able to use mouse along with the keyboard. Let's start the first step, as I already have mounted the bootable ISO. The first step would be to connect to the internet. As it already says, I need IWCTL. That utility already baked into this installer ISO, so I don't need anything else to run this command. As I see, I am within the IWD, so it will be much easier to connect to the internet. First, I need the device ID. Device list is the command device ID, which is WLAN 0. Now, this station needs to be connected to a Wi-Fi network using this WLAN 0. So the command will be station WLAN 0, Wi-Fi ID is R1. Before that, we'll have to type connect R1. This is asking for a passphrase, which is the password for the wireless router. Now it is connected. Let's exit from the window and let's ping. As I see, ping is working. That means I am connected to the internet. As the Arch Linux ISO don't provide all the necessary packages and softwares needed to be installed on this device, so I will need to connect to the internet or intranet to get all those packages. By default, this package manager pacman is set up to get all those packages from the internet. So Arch install would be the second and last command, fetching Arch Linux package database. That means it is now getting all those latest and updated package list. I think it has got all those package lists. Language is selected locally, already predefined. Mirrors, I don't want to mess with that. Disk configuration, this is where most of us gets stuck. This is the drive I want to install, and as you see, I need around a GB of NTFS EFI partition. I need to assign as EFI on slash. See, this is selected as EFI and flagged as boot and ESP. Next, I'll have to assign the installation media as slash. It is done. Confirm and exit. Go back. Swap partition. Right now, I will not add any swap from this section, as I will have the option to add swap as a file so that I can expand or compress that later on. Bootloader, right now it is selected as systemd boot. I know I have like other options like Grobe, or even we had Lilo back then. So let's proceed with the systemd bootloader. By the way, each and every time, day by day, Linux, the kernel is trying to be the full-fledged operating system itself, which is not good to me. Linux kernel, Linux LTS is the preferred Linux kernel, as I want my system to be stable. Hostname, I would choose my hostname. Suppose I want to name is as L2. That means I'll be understand like this is my laptop 2. Authentication, this here we set the root password. I have set up a root password, but remember to set a complex root user password. Add a user. Let me add myself as a user, and it is right now asking whether I would like to add this user to be accessible with sudo. I like doOS, but Arch Linux prefers sudo, so I'll go with sudo for now. Confirm and exit. What about EU2F login setup? I have no idea. I will take a look later on. Profiles, here you will get all those applications categorized by desktop, minimal, server, or Xorg. It is 2026. Xorg is a like past thing. Like if it is a 2022 or 2020, I would probably go with Xorg, but right now I would like to go with desktop. What I get, I want Hyperland. Hyperland, it is like bare minimal and sufficient enough to have GUI. It needs Polkit, go with that. Graphics driver, Greeter, SDDM should be efficient. Network configuration, yes, don't forget here, I made a mistake back then not to copy this one. Make sure you copy the network configuration to the installation so that after the installation is complete, you can access to the internet. Pacman, additional packages. What do I need for? Time zone is set to UTC. I love UTC on each and every system except my daily driver laptop. Right now, let's proceed with setup. You'll have to drop down to yes and proceed to enter. That's it. I think this time it will be done in perfectly fine. Invalid locally, as I see enus.utf8 is stating as invalid locally, but I know this is valid. That must be some error regarding installer. Have I found any bug? I'm not sure. Let's rerun the same Arch install binary. I've done same configuration. Let's try if it installs successfully. Now I have successfully installed the operating system, and I'll be able to say I use Arch. By the way, I'm not sure how to manage Hyperland or something else. Let's log in and confirm that I have successfully installed this operating system. Yes, welcome to Hyperland. That means I have successfully installed it. And by the way, this is not my first time. This is second or third time. I have also recorded the previous video so that you can take a look what are the general mistakes or some extra information, what you do when you stuck somewhere and how to get out from those issues. There are so many installation instruction, including the Arch installation guide on the Arch wiki, but still so many people lack the confidence to install the Arch Linux. What is the minimum requirement here? The minimum requirement is only half an GB. So nowadays each and every system should be capable to run Arch Linux, and you will be able to say I use Arch. By the way, yesterday I asked Mr. Ghosh to install this piece of Arch Linux on this piece of hardware, that means this laptop having Windows 10. So eventually he was not confident enough. Then I realized a lot of instruction and installation guide are there on the internet. Still people fail to install Arch Linux. I think it is the time to make a simple 5-step installation instruction so that each and everyone will be able to install Arch Linux on their own system, and they will be able to grab all the power Arch Linux is providing. The first step would be to boot. Second, connect to the internet, format, install, and set up a GUI. Let's start with the first step, boot. To boot your existing device, you can use CD, USB, or LAN. Nowadays 99% of the people prefer using USB, so I will go with the USB device. See, I'm having a little USB pen drive. So what I will do, I will go to the Arch download page and go for the provider. There are a lot of Arch ISO provider listed on the Arch Linux download page. I will go for the niranjan.co. He is a nice guy and quite a good friend. There are other distribution provider like Garuda Linux, few friend also there. Let's go with the Niranjan. And what I can see various options. File name having ISO and .sig and .torrent. What ISO files? Those ISO files are needed to install this piece of Arch Linux on my system. So I can download this 8664 or I can download this one. If someone prefers torrent, he must use the torrent one. By the way, torrent is the best way to get each and everything, whether it is AV files, even ISO files. By the way, there are some meme going on like Arch ISOs on the internet. That means they provide or get some kind of like media, so-called illegal contents like movie or games over the torrent, and they used to say those are my Linux ISOs. And let me copy this piece of ISO over my pen drive. I'm using Ventoy. You can just search and download Ventoy to install Ventoy on your USB device or pen drive. Let it copy. In the meantime, let's discuss some other way to get your device bootable. Past 20 years I have used CD or DVD to boot any devices. Before that we had to use floppy drive. If your distribution doesn't fit into one floppy drive, you can distribute using multiple floppy drive. Now it is much easier to have a bootable pen drive, but here, as we understand, multiple device need to formatted within a day, so it is not good way to have multiple pen drives. So what we do, we use XYZ tools to make bootable LAN. That means from the LAN connection you will be able to boot any or multiple devices simultaneously. For this piece of installation, I am just proceeding with the ISO on the pen drive. Now the ISO is transferred to the pen drive. Next step would be to boot this laptop from the pen drive using that ISO. By the way, I want to keep this piece of installed operating system, that is called Windows, a faltu operating system, but it is not fully useless. That means sometimes you will feel Windows is needed, especially formatting USB devices and connecting to a remote RDP, and other needs are also there to have Windows, like for game. By the way, even with game nowadays, Linux and BSD are quite good. Boot overriding. Let's proceed with this SanDisk partition 2. Save the configuration. Yes, see, the Ventoy installation is so useful. Using Ventoy you can have multiple ISOs and you just choose and select which one you like. I am having Alpine extended. That means this piece of Alpine ISO is having all the basic tools within this ISO, but today I will go with the Arch Linux. See, here we have two options, normal and group. If normal works, it is much better to use the normal mode, because if you install using group, you will be able to install additional group. But nowadays Linux, the kernel does each and everything and trying to become a full-fledged operating system, so the boot section also can be handled within the kernel itself. So what we have learned today is like Linux is trying to be the operating system, full-fledged operating system by itself, and it is trying to ditch the group. Previously we ditched Lilo, the boot manager, the famous boot manager. Now it is getting booted by using archlinux. It feels very cool to see those type of steps, like we are getting into the operating system. Yes, root @archiso. That means the system's name right now is archiso, and we are having root user. Now if I type arch install, I thought like I will have to manually search for an Wi-Fi, select an Wi-Fi, that means in simple terms connecting to the internet, and later on setting up the partition, installing all those operating system kernel and files, then adding some GUI application like Firefox, and I will be able to use my laptop. But I don't see I need all those steps. No network connection found. Would you like to connect to a Wi-Fi? Yes, of course, because I need all those extra piece of software to be installed on this system. That is the reason why I need a working connection, whether it is internet or intranet. By the way, let me say something about intranet and internet. That is because if you connect to the internet, you will be able to find all of those application and packages from the internet. But if you don't trust or rely on the internet, what you can do, you can collect all those packages and have your own distribution system within your own office or home, so that you can get those trusted applications only. Now as I can see, I got Wi-Fi but no wire connection, and it is having two signal within one router. One is 5 gigahertz, another one is 2.4 gigahertz. It's better to go with the 5 gigahertz. This step was not intuitive enough for me also. IWCTL. Using this IWCTL, I think I will be able to connect to the internet. First, I need the device list. The command would be simple device list. I see WLAN 0 is here. Using this WLAN 0, I will have to scan for any Wi-Fi. For that, I'll have to type station followed by the device name WLAN 0, then scan. I think get networks. Yes, I see R1 is here. Now it is the time to connect to the R1 station. WLAN 0 connect R1 passphrase. I think this laptop is now connected. How do I know if this laptop is connected? Let's ping. Ping is not working. Can I type IP? IP command is not available. See, this is the reason why a normal Linux user is unable to install Arch Linux. What I do, I need to exit from here. Then I type ping. Yes, now I am connected to the internet. What I will use now, I will use the arch install command, so that the arch install package, that means this installer. Wow, what a, like I have installed Arch Linux like 4 or 5 years ago. Many things have changed since then, especially X11. X11 like feels so outdated within 4 or 5 years. Nowadays each and everyone is using Hyperland, Wayland, so many cool things. So language English 100%, locally English US, mirror disk configuration. And remember one thing, do not set a dedicated swap partition. That is because if you select a dedicated swap partition, it will be nearly impossible to manage that piece of partition. Like you will not be able to increase or decrease or even use that portion of the disk. So it's better to not have a swap partition on the installation. What you can do, you can later on add a swap file within your disk or even on another disk. It's much better and manageable. Like you don't acquire the swap on the partition level. That's it. Better. Even Windows also does similar things, and I appreciate for that reason. Swap on ZRAM, enable compression algorithm ZSTD. Still I'm not sure why RAM compression is necessary, like partitioning. Yes, so I don't have to type fdisk. Even I remember 2001 2002, on that era, if you want to install Linux or even Windows DOS, the first thing you do, you use fdisk. But I think fdisk is not needed. Use a best effort default partition layout. That means the program will decide how the partition will be. Let's override that and go with the manual partitioning. I have two disks. one is 250 GB SSD and the bootable USB drive. See, this bootable USB drive is having ESP and boot two partition. The ESP partition is required for the UFS. See, the ESP partition is required for the BIOS. That means the updated BIOS. What it called today, it calls as UEFI. And what about this? I have three partitions. EFI partition, that means the ESP. But here we see as boot and ESP. Two flag is there. Another is Microsoft reserved partition, that is 16 MB. And the rest of the drive is 238.4 GB. That is called basic data partition, and it is having file system as NTFS. What I need to do, I need to shrink down this partition, NTFS. Can I shrink down? I have only three options. Assign mount point, that means I can assign slash as root. I can format or wipe the data and delete the partition. None of the options are fulfilling my requirements. What do? I just restart this system and boot using another system. Let's boot with another operating system. I think Ubuntu, that means a variation of Ubuntu, would be sufficient enough to format that partition. That means to shrink that partition out. Eventually, Ubuntu was not enough to shrink down that partition. Now I am trying to use Manjaro. See, two options are here, with proprietary and without proprietary. For now, it's better to go with proprietary drivers. Manjaro is also a Arch Linux based distribution, so technically you can say I use Arch, by the way, but it is not the time. It is the time to shrink down this piece of partition. See, resize, and I will be able to use finger, that means my touchpad, to shrink down. See, you cannot go beyond 15 GB. That is because the Windows partition is taking around 15 GB, so you cannot go beyond that. But I prefer to have like 40 GB so that I can get 215 GB, and Windows will also have around 25 GB or 26 GB remaining space, so that the Windows installation also will be able to usable. It is time I resize. Let's see how fast it was. Now we are having 215 GB as a free space on this disk. Finally, I will be able to install Arch Linux on the same hard disk. That means you will be able to install Windows along with Arch Linux on the same SSD or NVMe. Let's boot to Ventoy and start using Arch Linux. Now it is the time to boot the Arch Linux. What I see with speech, the Arch Linux installer even not friendly enough with keyboard and all those fingers, but they are providing with speech. I'm not sure what they will provide, but I'm even not interested to see those speech related things. It cannot provide a simple Wi-Fi connections. They are providing speech, so that I can say like use those free partition and just install. I don't think that much of ease is there on the installer. The same steps you will see on gopios also. It feels so familiar. On the first boot, I didn't see like they are mentioning IWCTL and NMCLI. Like NMCLI is obsolete, especially for the wireless broadband or similar things on modem. I think nobody use modem nowadays. IWCTL is the command for the internet. I don't need device list because I know WL0 is there. Still device list. Yes, WLAN 0. Let's connect with this device. Station WLAN 0, connect R1, exit. Now finally it is a good time to type Arch install, and the installer will start any moment. It has already started and fetching Arch Linux database. Now let's proceed with the disk configuration. Partitioning. If I select the first one, like use a best effort default partition layout, I'm not sure whether it will use the free partition or it will wipe out. So to be safe, I will go with the manual partitioning. Make sure to select the device or disk, hard disk, SSD you want to install Arch Linux, and then proceed with it. Now I see I have free space. How much of space I want to declare? I want to have 1.1 GB invalid size. 1.1 GB it didn't take. I'm not sure why. Now you see ButterFS, ext2, ext3, 4 along with F2FS, FAT12, 16, 32. I need FAT32 just because I need to be able to boot. Now let me say something about Linux fanboys. Like they think they're free to do anything on their system. They are using using Linux and they are out of Microsoft cannot decide what they do on their system. But remember, the operating system you are using is based on like processor, EVFI, all those are non-free. So you are not free. If your base is not free, you are not free. That is the reason why still till the date you need to have a FAT32 file system. Like even you cannot feel good like a 30-year-old file system, still you are dependent on that. Linux swap I don't need, and I recommend no one to use Linux swap until unless you have a dedicated purpose. FAT32/boot or EFI would be much, or boot/EFI. I forgot what do I do. Let's proceed with EFI, and I have nearly 200 GB of free space. The default is selected as the whole free space, and whether do I want to go with Btrfs or do I go with ext4. Only those two file system I like, Btrfs and ext4. If I don't use Linux, that means I am free, then I will use ZFS, especially with BSD variants. But on Linux, ZFS is still not mature enough to use it. I have tried previously but failed, so I'll go with ext4. I know using Btrfs there are so many good things, especially various operating systems by default use Btrfs, like Gadula Linux, like Manjaro also can have Btrfs by default on the root file system. But still I need 1 or 2% more performance out of this device, because this device is like $20 or $30 laptop. That is the reason why I will go with the ext4. Mount point must be / for the root. I think I'm done. One problem may be there using whether /EFI or boot/EFI. Rest is confirmed. Partitioning is done. Disk encryption. I don't like disk encryption. I like encryption on a small device like home/.ssh folder. I would like to have all my passwords, all my keys over there. A small partition like 200 MB or 5 MB. That is more than enough for me. Now it's time to go back. Swap. I don't need swap. Bootloader. Systemd boot. Nowadays in Linux, the kernel, only the kernel is trying to be the full-fledged operating system. Now it's time to go back. Linux kernel, Linux hardened, Linux LTS, and Linux Zen. Linux Zen provides little more power to you, and LTS provides much more stability, and hardened is for like people who want extra security. I think Linux LTS would be much better for this laptop. Hostname. The hostname would be L2. Authentication. Root password. Weak password. You must provide a strong password. User account. Add user. Yes, I want to add a user. Let me be a user. Should car be a super user? That means it will be able to perform sudo commands. I'm not sure why sudo is there. Do as much more better. Confirm and exit. Okay, I see one user is there. No U2F device found. U2F device. What is U2F device? I'm not sure, and I don't need right now. I will take a look later on. Profiles. I see the profile type. Server, Xorg, desktop. Go with desktop. I'm not sure what. Environment type, Xorg, window manager. That means before I install this operating system, I can select what are the things on the GUI part I want to install. Great. Cinnamon. I like Cinnamon, but I have seen my past experience. Cinnamon, KDE, GNOME. Those are not quite compatible with i3, Hyperland, or those kind of tiling window manager. Those three is fine. If you install all of those at once, it will work. You will have to just sign out, and while you sign in, you just need to select whether you want to use Cinnamon, KDE, or GNOME. But here I see all the options are listed here. I wanted to have Hyperland. Let's proceed with selecting the Hyperland. What I will get by default, if I select Hyperland, I will get Dolphin Qt systems. That means some of the GNOME and some of the KDE. See how complicated and twisted systems are. Like I'm using Hyperland, but KDE policy kit agent along with Qt 5 and 6 will end. Software will also be installed on that system. Okay, I get it. Graphics driver. All those drivers are free and open source. Got it. SDDM. GDM. Can I select GDM? Yes, I can select, but I'm not sure if this will create any conflict. Let me say first why I like GDM the most, because I will use this on laptop. What GDM does, it connects those Wi-Fi networks works even you are not logged in. Suppose you made a restart and your device will be disconnected. Like, what if I kept this laptop over here and I want to connect this laptop from my home or work office or even from any remote situation? I will not be able to connect. That is the reason why I like GDM the best. That is because I will be able to connect my system from anywhere. Applications, Bluetooth. Yes, I want Bluetooth. Audio, no audio, pulse audio, pipewire or pulse audio. This is the time you like select whether you want to have pulsewire or pipewire. See, pipewire is modern using hyperlink, so it makes sense to select pipewire by default, but I'm not sure what is the best right now. Still, my intuition says pipewire is the best for now. Audio, print service. I don't need print service. Still, it's better to have a print service enabled by default. The reason because you'll be able to share like Samba share. Those becomes much easier. Power management, power profile, daemon versus tuned. I think I will go with power profile. Firewall for now. UFD is selected by default. Can I unselect? Not sure. Additional fonts. Noto fonts. I like to add some extra fonts. Those are not listed here. I will be able to add them later on. So it's quite good to go. Network configuration. See, I already have connected a network and I am having a chance to get those connection information copied. It's good. Pac-Man color too. Additional packages. Let me select additional packages. Yes, I need additional packages, a lot of them. See, this is the reason why you connect to the internet or intranet before you start installing your operating system, especially Alpine and archlinux. I wanted to have this cursor font theme. See, I wanted to have Baloo, but on this laptop I will skip because Baloo adds a little overhead. By default, Bash is not selected. I'm not sure why Bash is not selected. Bash completion, Bash language server. If you have used cat, you must have BAT and BAT extras. BC is a basic tool. It's better to include BC as default. Let's find Firefox manually. Firefox. Yes, I have found Firefox. Automatic time sync. Yes, it is enabled. Time zone. I like to have all of my system on UTC. There is a big reason. We'll discuss another day. Additional packages. Wow. Profile, authentication, hostname, kernel, bootloader, swap, disk configuration. All are done. Now I feel quite confident to hit the install button. See, the boot partition not found. I will have to go to disk configuration and I think I'll have to select this boot partition as ESP and boot. How do I do that? Assign mount points. It was already assigned. I cannot have both as slash. So UEFI. Can I name this as UEFI and set this one as ESP? Yes, ESP is set. Now I need to add bootable. I think bootable would go with this. Now let's retry with the installation. It is using some kind of JSON. So it's better to like get a simple JSON file and download it and proceed with the installation. It will feel like I'm using archlinux plus the power of Nix package manager. It would be much easier. If someone is hearing this, please implement. It will be so much nice, intuitive and like less effort. It will take a much less effort. Now it is time to relax and see all those things happens using existing device SDA. See the difference? All major operating system ISO does include all those necessary applications packages, even with configurations within the ISO itself. But in case archlinux, you get 1.5 GB of only the core operating system. All those extra you will have to get from the internet or intranet itself. Plus you get and set all your window manager, GUI application, each and every bits by your hand. That is the reason why each and everyone likes archlinux. But what about amateur Linux user? They get to choose all of this power along with the automation and easy installation from Manjaro Linux, from gopios. So if you are using like gopios, the installation part is as simple as clicking next 3 times. That's it. Your system will be installed, set up, all those partition, each and everything by 3 or 4 clicks. In addition, you will get Nix, the package manager, so that your operating system do not mess with other application you use. I like to separate my operating system from all of the tools and software I use and I develop, so that my operating system do not break. See, this was the reason why many of us scares to install Arch Linux. What I understand, like add bootloader on that section, it got failed. What do? Do I change the bootloader or do something else like partitioning, manual partitioning, and I go with, I think this is going smoothly and I have found my mistake. The mistake was selecting the boot device. That means the root device must be selected as boot, not the EFI partition. So my EFI partition was nearly a GB, that was selected as EFI, and the root device was selected as boot. As here, as we have no dedicated boot manager like group or Lilo, we must select the root device as the boot device. That's it. I think all those softwares are getting installed part by part. Now wait and see if the installation works properly. Yes, I think the installation is done. The installation completed in 3 minutes 52 seconds. And what would you like to do next? Exit or reboot? I think reboot is the way to go, and detach my USB device. What do I see? This system has booted into Windows. I don't want Windows to be booted right now. I need to see whether the Arch Linux installation was done on this system. I think I need to change the boot order. Let me see, visit the BIOS or so-called UEFI and change the boot. I don't see a boot section. Why there is no boot section? The installation was done, but the boot, setting up the boot section is not done. Let me see if I can do it. There is no boot section regarding Arch Linux. Now it is the time we restart the Arch install, and this time I think I will get it done right. Before I do this, I will have to connect to the internet. IWCTL station WLN0 connect R1 passphrase. I am connected. Now let's exit. It is the time to finally open the Arch install. Arch Linux install locally, mirror disk configuration. This is where I missed last time. Manual partitioning. Again I see boot and ESP is selected. /EFI. Now it looks fine. I was so confident, still I made the mistake making the bootable drive. What I understood, I need two partition, one for EFI that must be selected as /boot or /EFI. I choose /EFI, and both EFI and boot flag must be selected for the /EFI partition. Those points you don't miss. Even after that, the installation is done, but I'm not sure how do I connect to the internet. As I see, IWCTL is not installed and I am not able to ping anything, so I will not be able to make pacman update or install command. Let me try pacman update. See, so much warning. That is because I'm not connected to the internet. Right now my condition is very severe, like I am not connected to the internet. I will not be able to. Now I am stuck in a critical situation. I will not be able to install any software. That is because I am not having internet connection. To connect to the internet I need IWCTL and I will not be able to install IWCTL. That is because I'm not connected to the internet. How do I break that? Do I have NMCLI? Even NMCLI is not here. NMTUI, do I have that? Even NM2I is not here. How do I do this? I think it's better. Do you know even like any other tools that comes? I think I don't have any choice but to reinstall this system. This is the second time I am installing this Arch Linux, and I hope this time I will be successfully install Arch Linux along with the IWCTL. Last time I forgot to install IWCTL on my system. Now let's connect to the internet. Station WLAN0 connect R1 passphrase. I think now I am connected. It's time to exit. Now just execute the Arch install. Arch install has started. I will go with minimal installation. First the disk configuration partition. Proceed with manual. All partitioning seems okay as previously. I have successfully partitioned all those systems. Still it's better to mark as formatted, as it will format this data and this installation will be a fresh installation. Confirm and exit, go back, swap, bootloader, bootloader, systemd bootloader. Go with systemd bootloader. Kernels, I think I will add Linux LTS. Hostname, authentication. For authentication, I will provide a super secure password. Profile, desktop. I will have a desktop with hyperland, so I will select hyperland. Network configuration. I think I missed this section, like copy ISO network configuration to installation. This is done so that I will be able to connect to the internet after the installation is done. Finally, let's start installing. Another dependency is missing, that is because greeter was missing, and I love GDM. SDDM is much lighter, but for some reason I like GDM. Now I think greeter, I have already selected the greeter, still why it is complaining. Oh, I understand. I need a regular user. From the authentication section, I will add user account, add a user, just the username along with password. I think it is good to go now. Finally, the install will happen. Root password not found. I already set up root password, and I think those are some kind of mismanagement of this archlinux installer. Can I say I found a bug? I'm not sure. Authentication, root password. I already set up this root password. I genuinely remember. Invalid configuration, root partition. Oh, root partition not found. Okay, I'll have to go to the disk configuration. Go to the disk configuration, partition, manual partition, and I'll have to provide assign mount point /EFI, and this will be select mount point as root. That means the slash. Finally, many times I have said finally, but this time it seems finally final. Let's hope for the best and wait. It took 4 minutes and 19 seconds to install. Let's reboot and verify if this installation is really a success. Good to see the installation is done, but will it connect to the internet? SDM is working. Can it log in? Yes. But as I remember, I have not installed Genome or GNOME. Why? GNOME is installed. I have got Kitty. Can I ping? At last, the internet is working, but I was expecting Hyperland to be my default. Let me do the logout and try if hyperland is available on the welcome screen.